Today, we are going to be talking about source attestations. It's going to be a lightning talk. We're going to move really, really fast. But this all started at Open Source Summit a couple months ago. Basically, I was having a discussion with a few folks about, we have SLSA, we have the SLSA source track, we have some tools that can write attestations about source code. Where should those live? Where should we put these? And so I wanted to just put together a quick talk on some strategies here and what to think about. So if we haven't met yet, hi, my name is Billy Lynch. I'm a software engineer over at Chainguard. We ship minimal hardened secure container images, VMs, and libraries. If you depend on open source, we probably have an artifact that can help you out, so you don't have to worry about CV remediation or anything like that. We have a booth outside. Please come talk to us. Happy to talk about this or anything else. I am also maintainer for a bunch of open source projects within the OpenSSF and sort of broader ecosystem, particularly GitSign, GitTough. These are both tools that integrate with source attestations. And so this is a topic very near and dear to my heart. So what is an attestation? Hopefully you've seen this term at least once today, especially in the context of Open Source Security Con. Basically, it's just some statement about metadata about an artifact from someone else, right? So an attestation by itself isn't really meaningful unless we actually trust who's making that assertion. But we need to put these documents somewhere. We want them to be discoverable. We want to be able to find them very easily. So then the question becomes, for source code, what do we care about, right? We care about who's making this change, who's reviewing this change, what CI checks have ran on this source commit, right? Have I done a vuln scan? Have I ran end-to-end tests? These are all the things that we sort of care about. So where do we put these? Answer. Very stereotypical software engineer. It depends. There's a bunch of different ways we can go about this. So first one, easy, code review. We're already hopefully doing this today, right? You already have code review. You can look up a pull request or a merge request, and you can see, all right, someone proposed it, this person approved it, here are the checks that ran. So great news, you're probably already doing this today. The bad news about this, if you just went to the GitTough talk right before this, they went into some of the problems around here. It is very source provider specific, and this comes with a few limitations. You're limited by what data they have in there. You're limited by, for GitHub pull requests as one example, I love pull requests, but one of the problems here is, I believe for pull requests, they only show you can look up pull requests by commit SHA, but they only show you ones that have been merged into the main branch. So it's sort of limited for things that haven't made it to main yet, things that you still want to have attestations for, but aren't necessarily part of the main repository just yet. So it is a great starting point. You are limited by the API, both in quota, rate limits, stuff like that, but it's better than nothing. Option number two, if we're talking about source attestations and we're talking about Git repos in particular, it'd be great if we could just store these in the Git repository. So some people will do this with Git notes, with GitSign and GitTough, and also the SLSA source tool. There's been experiments going on for storing this metadata within the repository in a separate ref space. So we've been using refs attestations. There's still some discussion going on here. There's some work I actually opened up as part of InToto. Basically, we're trying to formalize a spec for how we can store this information in the source repository. So this is good because it solves some of the problems before of, it's not necessarily, because it's in the Git repo, we don't have to rely on GitHub or GitLab by themselves. We can use the repository. We already have a mechanism to store content in repositories, so we can just reuse these mechanisms. The bad parts here, depending on your source code provider, the ACLs that they provide for permissioning can sometimes be not granular enough. So for GitHub, they don't do per ref write permissions. It's either you have write permission on the repo or you have read permission on the repo. And so this means if you want anyone to be able to write attestations, they can also write to other branches. And that can sometimes not be a great security posture depending on what you're trying to aim for. The other con I would say is, particularly if you're doing ref management, Git wants you to sort of act on one ref at a time. So you sometimes need additional tooling in order to be able to manipulate these refs behind the scenes in a user-friendly way. Otherwise, you have to do 2 pushes each time. And ideally, we only want that to be like a very thin facade over interacting with the Git repository. Another option, storage buckets. So this is sort of the very simple way. What's great about storage buckets is you can just put random files in there. And so you can imagine having a system where you say, all right, I want to add an attestation for this commit SHA. So anything in attestation/commit SHA/whatever, I'm just going to put my attestations there. This is great because you don't need repo access, right? It's a completely different system. You don't need to have write permissions on the repository itself. The problem here is because it's completely disconnected, discovery of these is going to be very hard, right? You're going to have to put somewhere in a README. Maybe there's some structured metadata, but there hasn't really been agreement on this for where to find this metadata, what format it's in, what the path structure looks like, what clients should expect. And so while this might be really good for being able to add things for your own personal stuff, it doesn't really quite meet the bar for what we want for sort of wide adoption for open source attestations. So, building on top of that, all right, well, if the problem is we need more structure, what if we have an API around this? What if we say, hey, we expect things in this format? And so there's some examples of this today. So Cosign and the OCI with the refers API, basically what they do is they say, hey, we expect attestations and signatures in this particular format. And if you know the commit SHA of a OCI image, you can use that in the OCI API to then find the attestations and the signatures for that. And so what you can do in this model is like, hey, if we have more of that uniformity here, that would be great because then we could discover things, we would know where to find them, and we get these benefits. GitHub has actually already taken steps towards this. So as part of their 6-store integration, they actually launched a attestation API. However, there are some limitations there. I was trying to put a demo together for this talk, and I discovered that they only allow attesters, they only allow identities from GitHub itself to upload to the attestation API. So that means you have to use GitHub Actions if you want to use their API. So if anyone from GitHub's listening, I would love to attest from other identities. Please, it'd be a great present. And yeah, it just in general, like it'd be great if we had this, but creating new standards is hard. Maybe we'll move towards this one day, but we're not quite there yet. But yeah, so it's still a bit in flux. So just to recap, this is still early days. Again, I didn't come prepared for this talk to solve anything in this talk. I just sort of wanted to give a highlight of where we're at, what people are evaluating, and ideas for where you might be can put some of your source attestations today. So that's all I have. Thank you. Again, my name is Billy Lynch. Here's my email. Happy to take any questions. We have 2 minutes. Questions? Yeah.
Not really a question so much as a comment. Thank you for doing this, because I think the thought leadership around, where do attestations live is great. I think also it's very timely because I was just actually talking about this in the hallway. This disruption around AI is taking people who were experts in attestation in different areas, and now it's forcing things to converge, and they're more willing to have conversations about how do things now interconnect. So as an example, if you're keeping your attestations through an executive order that you have an SBOM with your product, that's a signed PDF. So where do those live? So there's security teams who are trying to figure out where all these attestations live, and I think just thank you for driving this lightning talk today.
Yep. Thank you. Oh no, I'm scared.
Oh, no. I hope I'm a friendly face to you. So I really like this framing, and it's actually made me think in a way that I hadn't before. So what I'm curious about is, I just had this thought that, let's say we're in a world where all the different forges that are out there have their own APIs for uploading and downloading information and stuff like this. This feels like this is going to be a big mess for a ton of reasons. Can you think of a good reason why they shouldn't just put all of their information into a hidden ref inside of the Git repositories that they're already storing?
So I can give you one example. So one of the things we do, so what we do at Chainguard is we rebuild open source software. We would love to have, like, we want to have attestations for source software that we consume, and we add our own attestations about the software that we're downloading and scanning and checking. We do not have write access to the repositories. So if we want to have like an attestation store for Git repositories that we're consuming, the Git repo itself is already a non-starter. So that's why like some of the storage bucket or like a standalone API like might still make sense in that world, even if we're recommending like a lot of open source projects for their own stuff to distribute attestations that way. So I actually think there will probably be multiple methods to do this. Git repositories just being one of them if that's just how you're distributing the source code already.